Travelling down the local canal with minimal tackle is where a lot of anglers' journeys begin. Canals can often be overlooked when new anglers come into the sport, but these waterways can be packed with fish. Also with canals, they can be fished all year round because they don't have a closed season. Canals can be easier to fish than rivers, as often the flow is much slower. If you're unsure on where you're allowed to fish, then your local tackle shop will be more than happy to point you in the right direction. Some stretches are for members and other stretches are for day tickets, but it's always good to check first. Literally been fishing for a couple of minutes. This is the first fish of the day. Hopefully there'll be more to come. Fishing doesn't have to be expensive. Once you've got the basics like a whip, landing net and unhooking mat, it can last for years. Whether you've just started fishing or want to take your children or grandchildren fishing, this is the perfect way to get them into the sport. And it can be a hobby for a lifetime. That excitement of the float slowly slipping underneath the surface, and it could be a multitude of different species that could have taken your hook bait. Now that's exciting. When walking a bank and trying to choose a swim, I've always been taught to look for visual features like overhanging trees, boats, locks, things like that where fish are going to feel safe. If the whip you're fishing isn't quite long enough to reach that feature, constant drip feeding of bait will help the fish gain confidence and draw them out under the features that they're sat under. As you can see, the swim that we've chosen today is just past a bridge as it opens up into the marina. Marinas are a great place to fish because there's lots of boats for the fish to hide underneath, and also personally I think that the warmth of the boats lets off heat into the water, which is a warmer environment for the fish. Sometimes you might see odd boats passing through, but this won't affect the fish because they're used to boats travelling up and down each day. Sometimes this can improve the fishing because as the boat passes through, it kicks up the bottom, disturbing any bait which can cause a feeding frenzy. I'll just run you through what I've brought with me today. I have a whip kit, a landing net, an unhooking mat, some bait, plummet, and a rucksack, which has a few bits and bobs, including some spare hook lengths just in case I break off. The quality of whips and starter kits have come on so much over the years, and now you can get really good quality kit for an affordable price. Inside the whip kit, you have a rig which has everything you'll need to get you fishing straight away. The first thing to do is attach the rig provided to the whip. Open the connector and pop the loop into the connector and then close it back up. Then unravel the rig until the rig comes off the winder. There's a neat pole hookup on the whip which if you just pop your hook into, this will save endless tangles. Next is to find the depth of water that you're fishing in. The quickest and easiest way of doing this is with a plummet. I'm going to run you through how I plumb up on a whip. So what I'm going to do is I reckon it's 3.5, 4 foot deep roughly. So I've set the float up roughly about 4 foot from the plummet. I'm just going to swing it out and I'm going to draw it back just so it's just past the actual tip of the whip and then slowly bring it up. I can't actually see my pole float, so that means that if I was to fish here, the bait will be suspended off the bottom. So I'm going to pop the float further up by about 6 inches and then try again. So swing it out and then hold it back so it comes underneath. And now I could just see it underneath the water. So it only needs to be brought up by another couple of inches now. 1, 2. Right, swing it out and hold it so it comes back and then pop it down. Right, perfect. So as you can see, when I lift it out, the body of the float is just popping out of the water. And so this is perfectly dead depth. If you're not sure on when the plummets hit the bottom, if you gently lower it, you can see that there's an arc or a bend in the tip, and then all of a sudden it will straighten out like that. And that means that the plummet's sat on the bottom now. So what you want to do is adjust that float so the body of the float, so the big round part, is just popping out the water, and then that'll be dead depth on the bottom. So if I was to swing out the rig and plumb the depth as far out as possible, this would give me a false reading because the rig is entering the water diagonally. The float is not over the top of the plummet, so it'll give me a false reading. And if I was to fish here, if I was to bring up the float so I could see it and then fish there, I'd probably be potentially 2 or 3 foot over depth, and that's not what you want to do. Finding the correct depth is one of the most important parts of fishing. If you was just to set your rig at 6 foot and it was only 3 foot deep, you might be fishing 3 foot on the bottom, and if a fish picks up your bait, it might not register anything on your float and you won't know you've got a fish on. Perch. When you're unhooking perch, it's always best to put your finger on top of its head and then slowly work your way down just to stop that dorsal fin from coming back up, because it's got little spikes on and you don't want one of those going in your finger. A discorder is included in the kit and is vital to have with you when you go fishing. It allows you to unhook the fish safely, even if it swallowed the hook. Hold the line so it's semi-tight, then slot the line into the split on the discorder and slowly work it down towards the hook. This will then pop the hook out, causing no harm to the fish. With regards to bait, I don't think you can go wrong with a pint of maggots and a few worms as hook bait, which you can collect from your local tackle shop. Maggots are one of those baits that every fish in the canal eats, and it's definitely worth taking some with you if you're heading down here. I'd start off with feeding a pinch of maggots every few minutes to gain confidence of any feeding fish. If you feed too much, it can have a reverse effect and the fish could take ages to find your hook bait in amongst all the loose offerings. You can even overfeed the fish, which they can disappear at your swim completely and won't come back. There's no right or wrong way of hooking maggots. Some people hook through the thick end and some hook through the thin end. It's completely up to you. Today I've started hooking the maggots through the thick end, but if I'm putting 2 maggots on, then I'll hook them through the thin end, as this will show more of the hook point. Sometimes it can pay off changing your hook bait over to a worm. This is because if there's a predator in the area, there's more chance of a worm standing out as a hook bait than what there is as a maggot, because you're feeding maggots. When the float disappears underneath the water, it's important not to get too excited and strike too hard, as the hook can just pull out the fish's mouth or end up in a massive tangle which no one wants to deal with. It's a case of firmly lifting into the fish, and if the fish isn't on, you don't want your rig flying out and causing a tangle. You can then swing your rig back out and then you're fishing again. Oh my God, it's a pike. No. It's an actual pike. That's it. So we see a few small fish scattering on the surface. So we popped a worm on to see what fish was chasing those smaller fish around. And it was this pike. Let's get a slip back. I've had a lovely day down the canal today. I hope this little video encourages you to head down to your local canal and give whip fishing a go.